Hello, everybody. My name is Duncan or Duncannon, and I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of a little character called Superman? What does it mean to be a good person? Are people born good, or are they made? What makes us human? These are questions that I've asked myself for a long time. I grew up as the weird kid. I didn't talk much, mostly kept to myself. In fact, my first year in school, I had to be held back not because of my academic performance, but because of my lack of social skills. I did eventually start talking a bit more, but every year I was in, every school, I was always with the nerds. And I loved it. I've always liked the nerdy stuff. Some of my earliest memories are of me pretending to be Batman. I had this towel that had like a hood on it with ears, and when we'd go to pick up my sister from the first grade, I'd put it on and run around as Batman. I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series, but also the Batman 2004, which I had a costume of, and one time I went to the store and some nice old lady gave me a $2 bill. So, shout out you. The big superhero stuff I was into was anything Batman, anything Spider-Man, and also the Justice League cartoon show. That was an incredibly formative show because it introduced me to so many different characters. It introduced me to characters like Hawkgirl, Green Arrow, The Question, and most importantly, The Flash. Honestly, I'm not sure if it was this show that introduced me to the character of The Flash, but this is the one that made me fall in love with him. I found that speedy, sort of annoying characters particularly interesting as a kid, but another character that it got me into was the character of Superman. Honestly, as a kid, I wouldn't say I was the biggest fan of Superman. Not because I was one of those kids that thought he was like too powerful or boring. I was just far more interested in the characters with more interesting or specific power sets. It didn't help much that in like every episode Superman was just getting his ass whooped.
We got called on the carpet for making Superman a wimp.
Yeah.
And guilty. Guilty as charged.
Sure, yeah.
We didn't know we were doing it. We were actually kind of using it as a kind of a dramatic crutch early on. It's like, oh, well, hey, if Superman can get taken down really, right away, well, then now this is a really bad threat, and now the rest of everybody else is all in trouble. We didn't realize it had become like a recurring gag until we started getting the internet comments and everybody's saying, well, wait a minute, why is Superman such a wimp now? And it's like, oh, you know what? There's a pattern.
But I think this show was key to getting me interested in the character of Superman. I have a distinct memory of me as a kid seeing the Fleischer cartoons for Superman and thinking, oh my god, this is like the coolest thing ever. The colors, the art, the voice. Something about the sound of this really old cartoon spoke to me. That animation was just spectacular. Even as a little 4-year-old, I was able to recognize how amazing it was. I also grew up watching the Crypto animated show. Not as cool, but all of this is to say that I really only recently got into the character of Superman. And honestly, I feel like I've been missing out my whole life. I mentioned the idea earlier, but throughout my life I've heard people say that Superman is boring, he's too powerful, he's uninteresting US propaganda, and just a Boy Scout. I think all of these questions stem from the fact that people have a misguided idea as to who Superman is. Superman is a very simple character, but there's so much complexity within that simplicity that people just often miss. I think about this clip from the movie Kill Bill Volume 2.
A staple of the superhero mythology is there's the superhero and there's the alter ego. When that character wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic Superman stands alone. Superman was born Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the big red S. That's the blanket he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. Those are his clothes. What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
I've seen this clip being thrown around as proof of this is what Superman is, but I would like to disagree. What people don't understand is that Superman is both Kal-El and Clark Kent. The idea that one of these different characteristics of him overpower the other is a fundamental misunderstanding of Superman. Superman, for all intents and purposes, is a man. There's this absolutely amazing quote from Grant Morrison that I'm sure everyone has heard, where they say, Superman is a metaphor. For me, Superman has all the same problems we do, but on a Paul Bunyan scale. If Superman walks the dog, he walks it around the asteroid belt because he can fly in space. When Superman's relatives visit, they come from the 31st century and bring some hellish monster conqueror from the future. But it's still a story about your relatives visiting. I would like to humbly apologize to Grant Morrison for the way that I portrayed your voice. I don't know what that was. I think I was just doing like my Billy Butcher impression. I don't like, my bad. Superman is the most human character, but he is still an alien. Trying to disregard one of these truths to supplement the other is how we get runs like the John Byrne Superman run that feels almost like propaganda. This run has its fans. For a long time it was considered one of the best, but John Byrne is low-key a weirdo. Ciao. I do want to say real quick, the John Byrne Superman run is not bad. There's a lot of things to enjoy about it. I think that he helped solidify our idea of who these characters are for the modern day. He really made an incredible run. It's just he decided to make certain choices that really show his less than favorable political ideas. Hello. My dog is in the background. Everyone say, hello, Zeke. In that tone. That's important. Editor, keep that in. The complaints for Superman remind me of the complaints that people have for Batman. That Batman could do so much more good by spending money on infrastructure and changing the system, instead of going around punching poor people. What people don't understand is that Batman does both. Bruce Wayne is just a man trying his best. He is flawed, his methods can contradict each other, but he is a man who tries. Batman is not the end game, he is the beginning. By doing the things he does as the Caped Crusader, it helps push the money he puts into furthering Gotham. His methods are backwards in a lot of ways. It's partially why I believe maybe nobody should pick up the mantle of Batman. Should Batman be a legacy or a stepping stone for the future? I'm personally honestly 50-50. Batman does so much good, but I mean, it's kind of set up that Nightwing is the right way to go about hero work, focusing on the light that it brings instead of the darkness it leaves behind. But I can't lie, I really want someone else to be Batman because that's just cool. Mini Batman rant aside, don't take quotes from people who clearly do not care for what the stories are really trying to say and just want to peddle their own interpretation. You shouldn't believe that Superman is boring because everyone you know says it. You should look into what makes him so popular. Make your own opinion. Write your own tweet backed up by the source material. It's all subjective. But I think if you spend the time trying, you'll find out why he's so beloved and why we need him.
Looks like a job for Superman.
Superman has many nicknames. The Man of Steel, Last Son of Krypton, the Man of Tomorrow. But my favorite has to be Champion of the Oppressed. Idealism, the practice of forming or pursuing ideals, especially unrealistically. Superman is many things, but an idealist is probably his biggest trait. What does it mean to be the champion of the oppressed? Take a look at the cover of the first ever appearance of Superman. It's the Man of Steel crushing a car. For a character nowadays known for being this hopeful, cheery, honest-to-God kind person, his first ever showing to the people of our world was him crushing a car as people ran away terrified. I can only imagine what young readers at the time must have thought when they picked up this comic. But as you open, you're faced with a man named Superman, champion of the oppressed, who in his very first appearance breaks into a house, beats up an abusive husband, saves Lois Lane, who is taken by a man in his gang, where we get the iconic image of Superman lifting up a car and smashing it into bits. In his very first issue, he makes his ideals known. He is a physical marvel who devotes his existence to helping those in need. This idea is shown in one of my favorite comics of all time, Superman Smashes the Klan. Based on the real-world radio broadcast that leaked actual information on the KKK, it's a story about a girl named Lan Shin, moving to Metropolis, dealing with the troubles of being a Chinese-American family during the 1940s, specifically dealing with the Klan of the Fiery Cross. And at the same time, Superman is dealing with his first ever encounter with kryptonite, which this may be the greatest take on kryptonite of all time. Having it make Superman feel sick, having visions based on his own fear and insecurities of being an alien. This story is absolutely fantastic, dealing with real struggles that people have to go through on a daily basis, but like Grant Morrison said, on a grander scale. It's an amazingly uncomfortable story at times, but it's also an incredibly heartwarming story about accepting who you are and where you come from. Plus, Superman beating up racists is always a good visual. This is one of those must-read stories. But in this story, we get to see the humanity that Clark brings. The warmth, the kindness, but also the deep sense of loneliness. Superman's Secret Identity, created by Kurt Busiek, is a short Elseworlds miniseries where a young boy named Clark Kent gets superpowers. However, Superman is a comic book character. This comic is basically what if Superman was in the real world, much like Superboy Prime, and one of my favorite parts of this story is when Clark gets captured and experimented on, and that feeling of fear that followed him. Him becoming paranoid and unsure of the world while having to navigate what it means to be a superhero in the real world. Superman may be a hopeful figure, but he still has that innate feeling of disconnection from the rest of the world. No matter how many people he saves, no matter how many world-ending threats he stops, there will always be at least one person who hates him because he isn't human, and that will always hurt him. My favorite Superman story is Superman For All Seasons. And in that story, a big part of issue 3 is that Superman fails to save someone. A person dies in his own arms because he failed to see the fragility of humans. So, he runs back to Smallville. He becomes afraid of being Superman. But when a flood hits Smallville, he suits back up because the people he cares about need him. The people on the ground are the most important things to Superman, because without them, what does he have left? No matter what happens to him though, he always believes in others. That's why I hate truth, justice, and the American way. I get what it's going for, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Democracy and fairness for all, but I hate it because it shrinks what Superman can be. From the protector of the whole world, the shining light for other superheroes, to just a hero for one country. Which, like in universe, it doesn't even make sense because it's just doxing him. Also, the truth and justice kind of get that idea across already, so it's not really needed. But I love truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. That's what Superman stands for. That's his ideal. Superman stands for the idea that everyone can change, that life can change. No matter how bad things get, things can and will get better. That is Superman. That is his ideal. And that's why Superman is the greatest superhero of all time. He encapsulates everything every other hero is and can be. He is the superhero. The idea of idealism, focusing on the mental of the world, the polar opposite to physicalism, the idea that everything is a physical fact. The only true things are things that we can see, touch, hear, and taste. And the other one of the 5 senses, whatever. Idealism focuses on what reality can be, that our world is what we make of it. Superman is an idealist because he believes even if everything seems all for naught, there has to be a way, which is the core idea of the most famous Superman story of all time. All-Star Superman. We've all heard of All-Star Superman. I don't need to get into it. It is a fantastic story to truly understand Superman. Even while the Man of Tomorrow will never get to see tomorrow arrive, he fights for what he believes in. Superman is incredibly important because he is the best of us. Any comic book fan gets that. But does the general public? That's what James Gunn's Superman had to find out. But did it succeed? In my life, only 2 movies have ever made me cry. One is The Boy in Striped Pajamas, shout out my 6th grade teacher for that experience, and the second was Superman. This was the perfect movie that hit me at the perfect time. I'm not going to go too deep into specifics as it's just incredibly personal, but this movie and how it talks about family, specifically talking about fatherhood, is incredibly poignant to me right now. Hearing Pa Kent talk about what it means to be a parent and the lessons they impart on their children, it hits you, you know. No matter where you come from, what makes a person themselves. Fuck, man. I'm starting to tear up just thinking about this movie. Your choices. The thing that makes you yourself. What makes a person good are your choices. Your actions. They are the most important things. That's what makes a person a human. That scene at the end with Punk Rocker and the video of Clark and his parents, tears well up in my eyes just thinking about it. No movie has stuck the landing better for me. The literal perfect ending. The theme of family and choosing who you are, being human. That is what this movie is about. And you can see the cultural shift from this movie. All over the world, you can see people talk about how this movie made them want to be a better person. This movie could help the landscape of the world, and I'm really hoping it does. This movie incredibly subtly talks about current events, with Jarhanpur and Varavia. I'm not going to pussyfoot around the topic. This movie is incredibly pro-Palestine. The entire crux of the movie is about how Varavia wants to take over Jarhanpur, explaining it away as some tyrannical regime when really it's about political power and money. I found this funny clip from Will Neff talking about the self-snitching this movie has caused. I really like this clip. Roll the clip.
But the most brilliant thing that Gunn did was Varavia is Israel, obviously, and they're cartoonishly evil in the film. Right? So no one who supports Israel can look at it and go, well, Varavia is supposed to be Israel, because they then would have to admit that what they are doing in real life is cartoonishly evil. It's such a brilliant, Varavia made you think of Israel? What about it? What about what they were doing?
This movie shows the importance of speaking out about the injustices that go on within our world. That every voice, no matter how small, is important. The lessons we heard as a kid prove to be forever relevant. If you see something, say something. So I will say it, as everyone should, free Palestine. This is a topic I've been thinking about a lot, and I figured there's no better time to talk about it than now. There have been a lot of talks about people being performative. There's these clips of protests, specifically during the No Kings protest, of people going out as fictional characters for these protests. And a lot of criticisms have been thrown at these people for being performative. Changing the dynamic of the protest to be about these people who dress up as Batman or Captain America. How they are making it about themselves and how people need to use capitalistic media to show support. And I get what they're saying. And they are right. But I can't lie and say it doesn't bring a little smile to my face. America is a nation pretty much just built off of pop culture. These characters are so deeply integrated into our society that if you go to a landfill, you'll probably see a Funko Pop of Spider-Man or something. So seeing these effectively mythological characters brought to life and showing support to other people, I mean, that's what being a superhero is all about. That's what this Superman was telling us. That we can all be a hero. That it's your actions that define you. And so I guess the question is now, who are you gonna be?
This is a first-rate town, and all you ever notice are the ways it stretched too far. Well, it has been knocked down, but some of us are still left here between the scars. And when you look around, all you ever notice is you cannot see the stars. This is a first-rate town,